Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we're going to meet the great Dr. Johnny Parker. He's going to talk about strategic coaching and how it might apply to your relationship. That's next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, it is amazing how relationship advice can also apply to a relationship inside a company. I mean, in many respects, it is a family, and so some of the same things that you would tell a couple that is feuding, you could tell to an executive in their C-suite. To talk about that today, Dr. Johnny Parker. He's an executive coach and relationship architect. Thanks for coming on the show.
Great to be with you, Jeff.
Very cool. Let's talk about your journey, because you went to college and you studied strategic leadership. What is that?
Well, it's being intentional about helping leaders look at their life and look at what I call the backstage. Oftentimes we look at the front stage, leaders being productive and they got things going on social media to grow their company, their growth, their profits, and strategic thinking. So we look at the backstage. We say that matters, and profits and productivity, all those things have their place, and that matters, and culture matters. But the backstage is what we focus on. Is focus on the leader's soul, the leader's story, because every leader's life is always telling a story, and we want to go back there at the backstage, because as the backstage is healthy, it empowers front stage success.
And I know you do a lot of marriage coaching, because you're in love with your soulmate. How long have you guys been together?
We've been together 33 years, to my Jamaican sensation.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's from Jamaica. She's from Jamaica, West Indies.
And I teased off at the top of the show that some of the same advice that you would give a couple to get along, it works for executives as well.
It really does, Jeff, because what happens is I need empathy in my relationships. Like one of the times my wife and I had a growth session, a moment of conflict, which we have a lot in 33 years. And I asked her this question: what do you want me to hear that I'm not hearing? Well, guess what? I've been able to help teams turn the page by asking that same question when there's been conflict and an impasse. What do you want the other to hear that they're not hearing? And so creating a space where that's safe. You need and you need diversity. So my wife and I, we're very, very different. She's from Jamaica, West Indies. I'm from Jamaica, New York. And so you need to be able to apply that. You need emotional intelligence. I need emotional intelligence in my work with coaches and with teams. Well, I need that to be self-aware in my marriage. You have core values in teams and relationships at work. Well, in my marriage and in marriage, you need to have core values. And so the same skill set that I need to win at work, I need to win at love and win at marriage.
Yes, and you and I had the pleasure of working together for about a month and a half during the holidays, and you were all over the different networks. We found a wonderful clip. Let's go ahead and share that now.
The holiday season is a time when we often experience the blues. And coming off of COVID-19, winter doldrums are setting in, and some of us are prone to panic attacks and depression. But a mental health specialist who works with both individuals and group clients, and even some professional athletes, says we can proactively prevent ourselves from feeling down. Dr. Johnny Parker was in Frederick yesterday and said we can follow a set of mental clues as a strategy to remain upbeat at times when the emotional landscape may become a bit rocky. Dr. says it's a wellness program that keeps our spirits high.
You can do this with your family on Thanksgiving Day. And so it's just something to get us moving towards a healthier direction in terms of wellness, emotional, relational, spiritual, mental, that wellness does not happen automatically, it happens intentionally.
Dr. Parker is also busy in the classroom these days when he's not coaching clients in the sports arena or in the corporate boardroom. He teaches a class in psychology at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore.
And Johnny, in that news clip, you showed off these cards. It says 31 prompts for living and leading with positivity. Talk about the cards.
Yeah, we, especially with COVID and everything going on in the last 2 years, I call it the popping peas. We've had pandemics, protests, pivots in politics. And so I felt like we needed something to help call people to be intentional about wellness. We don't drift to better, we don't wander to wellness, it happens intentionally. So the cards are prompts and to call people to positivity. I'm not a naturally positive person. I have to work at my positivity. My wife, hers comes naturally. And so having cards that talk about, today I purpose to be kind by today I purpose to be a fragrance and not an odor in my attitude. Today I will look at my 3 core strengths. So it's calling people to be really intentional about positivity and leading our hearts, and as opposed to waiting and expecting to drift to better, which doesn't happen. We have to be intentional about moving to better and positivity.
Yes, and so much of the news these days is negative. You know, when I was in the news business, they used to say, if it bleeds, it leads. So, I mean, the news is naturally going to be negative. So if somebody is consuming too much negative news, is it time for a timeout?
Absolutely, it's time for a timeout, because 1 out of 5 people are experiencing chronic anxiety and stress and burnout. So you definitely want to move towards gratitude. So I tell people, keep some type of gratitude journal where you're intentional about writing 3 specific gratitudes each day. It's a mood booster. It helps our immune system. It reduces stress. Just something as simple as that, and reducing the amount of news that we consume. Go to bed watching Hallmark or something positive, as opposed to what's going on in the news.
Yes, you brought with you this booklet, and I love booklets. One, there's so much to read these days. Having something like this in your purse. Tell us about exceptional living.
Yeah, there was 31 exercises to call people to really maximize their life, their work, and their relationships. So then that book is just something each day. Again, I like 31 days in a month.
Yeah.
So it's just every day you have something that's calling you to be intentional about being exceptional for yourself. I tell people that every day you need to have a meeting with self. So I need to first start with me and move towards other people. So these are ways to start your day, just being intentional about maybe 10 minutes today. I will be purposeful about connecting with someone, having a conversation. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a coworker. But we need to be talking to people, and that's just one thing, because we're made to be known, seen, and heard.
Yeah, and I think if I remember right from one of your interviews, you talk about how you start off your day. Your first waking thought is important, right? If you wake up and you're groaning because you're tired and you need coffee and your first thoughts are negative, that can spiral, can't it?
It really can, and so that's why it's really important that we are being intentional about the story that we tell ourselves and the story that we're writing for our lives. Because so many times it's easy to get stuck in a bad story of drama and trauma. But how do we be intentional and starting off the day? I like to spend my morning just 5-10 minutes just stillness. Praying, meditating, just being still, some mindfulness exercises that I encourage people to be intentional about, so that, and again, I call it the backstage. It's the private life,
right.
So that when I go front stage and I'm on social media or I'm in a Zoom meeting, I'm showing up from love and not for love. I'm showing up being fully present and giving my best to others and what I'm doing.
And the words that we use are important. So sometimes I'll catch myself, I'll wake up and I'll say, I have to, and then I catch myself and say, no, I get to. It's a chance to influence people. Right? A teacher who is like, oh gosh, I've got to, or I have to. I get to is different, isn't it?
Very much so, because I have to sounds like it's drudgery. It feels like work, but I get to is an opportunity. I get to, it's more delight when I use words. So words create worlds. And so the words that I use really affect the story that I live. So we want to be very intentional about the words that we speak in relationships on a daily basis.
And I like to say that you have a heart of a pastor. We've got some video of you speaking, and this happens to be at your church, is that right?
Yeah, Father's Day.
What was your message that day?
I was talking to the men about how important it is to know that you're loved by God, and identity. Because so many men base their identity, going back to this front stage, backstage again, so many men base their identity on what they do, who they know, and what they own. which is like building a life on sand. And so I was really calling them in to understand that in their spiritual life, that they are beloved by God, and it's not based on performance. You're loved because of who you are, not what you do. So I really wanted the men to really hear that and to internalize that as their new normal and hopefully their new reality.
Yes, and the reason you're in Texas, because I know you're based in the Washington, D.C. area, the reason you're in Texas is you're driving right after this show to East Texas, where you get to coach some very influential CEOs. Tell us about what you'll be doing.
Yeah, so one of the things I enjoy doing in my work is really, again, going in the backstage of leaders and CEOs in terms of their story. All of us in every life, every CEO, every team is always telling a story. So I'm going to be just helping to facilitate going deeper, moving from a water ski to scuba diving in terms of relationship, and going deep and being more vulnerable, being authentic. Again, in every story, Jeff, there's always a hero and there's a nemesis, and there's the bad guy. So we want to emphasize the hero, that you guys get to be the hero in terms of what you do and leaving others better off in your businesses. But we also want to be aware of how that there's an enemy in every story, and that enemy is loneliness and it's shame. So we want to remove those things that block deep relationships from happening and emphasize what hero looks like, what does generosity look like, and how can we be leaders who leave others better off as we get healthy and transparent with one another.
Let's talk about mental health, because I know a lot of those interviews that you did had to do with mental health issues, and we do have a pandemic of mental health issues. Employees that are afraid of COVID, or they lost a loved one, or they're working remotely. What are you seeing on the front line?
A lot of anxiety. It's like the pressure points of panic. Many people, my own wife, 2 weeks ago, I had to take her 5 o'clock in the morning to the hospital because she was having a panic attack. That's happening in families, that's happening in relationships. COVID brain, weird fog, sleeplessness, that is happening. And so again, this is why it's so important that more than ever before, being so purposeful and deliberate about our wellness, about flying down here, put your mask on first, take care of you so you can take care of other people. So that's what I'm seeing, and more than ever, how can I help millennials? And because 1 out of 3 millennials are experiencing chronic anxiety. I just had a family recently, their daughter took her life. So walking through those kind of emotional challenges, and again, reinforcing what we've been saying, how intentional we need to be about our own wellness and positivity.
Sure. You do a lot of work with corporations and individuals and C-suites. How does a company owner know when they need to bring in somebody like you?
Well, oftentimes you see someone that's underperforming. And oftentimes companies will see that that an employee, whether it's on a C-suite, whatever, they are not relating well to people. What got them there in terms of their talent on the front stage is not sustaining them in terms of positive relationships on the backstage. So I get brought in to help them grow in terms of emotional intelligence, grow in empathy, grow in having a human-centered, people-first mentality in terms of creating a culture of wellness. That's where companies bring me in to help them do that. And again, stressing, as a leader gets good on the backstage, that sustains and empowers them to do great work on their front stage in their public life.
Outstanding. We only have a little bit of time left. Your camera is there on the right. What do you want to say to the viewer to wrap up this segment?
Yeah, I just want to encourage each of you to be intentional about simple things. I want to restate. Practice keeping a journal, writing out your thoughts to bring clarity, to bring slowing, to help boost your immune system, to help boost your mood towards positivity. So just something, if you can just take that away, because our wellness is hard work, and our wellness is hard work, but our wellness is worth the work. And I want to encourage you, let's be intentional about being well and staying well.
Wow, great way to end the segment. We're going to end with your website, which is johnnyparker.com. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great to be with you, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.